specifically affecting, I guess, some of the comments that have been in the media with regard to the City of Windsor, and they're being upset that the good Dr. Kirk didn't show up for the meeting this past week, and was just simply saying that, hey, the provincial law mandates that you pay, and so pay.
Well, in fairness, it wasn't quite that. Basically, in the letter as well, Dr. Kirk basically told them in terms he needed some time to prepare in terms of exactly what the city was actually looking for. Yeah, there is some truth in terms of the act itself, Health Protection and Promotion Act, in terms of the budget. As you know, the budget this year was passed and by the board, and where there are 4 members from the City Council that sit on that board, and I believe there's only 1 that voted against the actual budget. But having said that, the reality is that we are the lowest funded per capita, roughly around a little over $30 per capita.
That's not just the city; that's the county.
This is the county. This is the region. The region itself. And when you look at the 38 other jurisdictions, you know, we're at the bottom end. Some of them get as high as $81 per capita. The average across the province is about 48, somewhere give or take. So that's that. When you look at the average, we're $18 per capita under, but we still have to provide the same mandatory programs that the province are asking us to do.
Why such a disparity?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't know if it's going back 20 years or so. A lot of it is how the budget was allocated. And as you know, our fiscal year starts in January, all of the municipal fiscal year, and also the health unit. The province is April 1st. And as you know, when the Minister of Finance passes his budget or presents his budget, it's got to go through the House and so forth. Sometimes it's 6-8 weeks before it's passed. And from there, we've seen ourselves into late fall, beginning of almost winter, and we've had it as late as December when they actually approved our budget on the provincial side. So think about this. Are you going to take a chance and spend money that maybe the province won't pass your budget? And then what happens then? And so you're always a year behind in budgeting. So what happens is when your budget is finally passed, a lot of times you can't spend the allocated dollars. So guess what happens? Your base never moves. You send back money to the province and to the funders. So it creates a bit of a problem for us. Many other jurisdictions said, you know what? We're going to spend our budget whether we get it or not. And so that helped elevate their base budget over the years. So that's an issue that obviously now we're trying to catch up.
Now, is that where this whole concept of any surpluses being turned over for a reserve fund came into play?
Well, let's get the surplus thing on the table. I mean, we're not talking millions of dollars here. We're talking less than 100,000 sometimes. Some years, nothing. What we're basically at times where it makes it difficult is like the one-time funding. If you wanted, for example, a vaccine refrigerator fails, got to replace it. Air conditioning unit, leaky roof, a bunch of other items where we look at one-time funding instead of waiting and then having to go to the province and say, can we, through an allocation, get special funding? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, depending on the severity of the need. If you had a reserve fund that was set up from some of those surpluses, which don't happen very often, a lot of those one-time costing could be dealt with. And so we would use a certain capping, no more than 2% would be the maximum amount you could ever have in there. And the 10 plus years that I've been on the health unit board, I can tell you this much: there's not a heck of a lot, in terms of surpluses.
Okay, let's change direction. Mega hospital, that seems to be a very big topic, especially in the current provincial election that's going on here in Ontario, with the various parties weighing in on their position on it. Now, as the mayor of Tecumseh, kind of a bedroom community to Windsor, as LaSalle is, you're our closest neighbors, what is your view as the mayor in terms of site selection? Because we're now in the second stage, 1B, which includes the selection of the site.
Well, we don't classify ourselves as a bedroom community. we can stand on our own merits. But having said that,
Yeah.
this hospital is a regional hospital. It's not a Windsor hospital. It's not an Essex County hospital. It's a regional hospital. Not only regional here, but also some of the services also will be offered to Chatham-Kent as well as Sarnia-Lambton. Number one. So the Erie St. Clair Lynn, if you look at the envelope it covers, is those three areas.
Okay.
That's number one. The next big issue that we have to look at is the other facilities. Like Hotel Dieu will remain a facility that's going to be more into specialty care, long-term, chronic care, that type of, and that's going to be in the downtown area doing its thing there. The T4 campus obviously has its it merits that it will continue to operate in that area, especially on mental health and again on rehab. Now we look at the acute care, which needs to supply a particular service and need for the region. Now, this facility, we're probably 8 to 10 years away before it accepts its first patient.
Sure.
And from that point, that facility is built for the next 75 years, 100 years.
Yeah.
Where's the epicenter going to be in terms of populace and so forth? Downtown Windsor? I don't think so.
No.
Leamington? No. So it has to be in an area that I think is on the border fringes. And I think that's where the business case, I think, will lend itself and say, we need to put this facility in an area where we can deal with the aerospace because of the helicopter pad that's going to be required, and accessibility, close to
Public transportation.
Absolutely, public transportation, parking, and the border, access to the border itself, because we're still going to have some issues there. And the other two are neighbors, which is Chatham-Kent and Sarnia-Lambton. So I think the committee, and gosh, they got a tough job.
Oh boy!
But I think really cooler heads have to prevail here. Politically, we should step aside and really look at the merits of where it'll better serve our region for the next 75 years.
So when you hear people banding about the idea of some of the surplus lands out near Windsor Airport, would that kind of fit into what you're describing?
Well, it's getting closer, but I thought that was going to be full of solar panels by Samsung and so forth.
There's a spot out your way, isn't there, where you were going to build an arena and a racetrack?
It's a spot, but what we're asking is all landowners. Personally, I believe it should be in a 4-1 corridor. Yeah. That's where it needs to be. People are saying, well, public transit. Yeah, you're absolutely correct, and so forth. But I can tell you that's not going to be an issue when the hospital's built.
Are they going to learn from the site selection, for example, the regional jail that they just erected?
Well, there you go. I mean, obviously, it was a great location, and so those all have to be explored. And I firmly believe that accessibility is going to be critically important. And again, I think the point that everybody has to really think, it's that hospital is not for today.
Yeah.
That hospital is in the future, but it needs to serve this region for 75 to the next 100 years. That's, to me, is a critical component. And looking at the region, who knows what it's going to look like in 75 years from now. But the bottom line is that let's do the homework. And I think the committee will be charged in doing that, and they will do a great job. And then we're asking individual landowners to come forward, and it has to be based on solid business principles.
Following the lead of a couple of the municipalities in the county, Tecumseh is looking at enacting a bylaw, an anti-smoking bylaw in public. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, some of it, it's more refined than that. It's in the area where children are at play, our sports fields, parks, and playgrounds, and in those areas. I think it's important that not only we show the example, but we need to protect those young kids in that area. But in the same token, I think that we need to really look at the bigger picture and offer some opportunities, and that's why I think it's critically important to bring the general public in, all of them, smokers, non-smokers, young and old, to come in and get their viewpoint as well. But first and foremost, we got to look at the health of our community.
Yeah. remember as a younger person, we used to always look forward to the beginning of June because that was the kickoff of the festival, Strawberries out in LaSalle. And we didn't so much look forward to the end of August because that figured school was coming, and of course the big granddaddy of them all, the big Tecumseh Corn Festival. But over the years, Tecumseh has really grown in its festival culture. It's not just the Tecumseh Corn Festival anymore. No. Tell the people what they can do in Tecumseh this summer.
Well, I mean, very shortly we're going to be kicking off, obviously, the Art of Eating, our wine and food festival in the next couple of weeks at our beautiful, and I mean, finished now, waterfront park. So we're really looking forward to that. So that kind of kicks off, our summer for us here in Tecumseh, and it follows on the footsteps of the LaSalle Strawberry Fest. And shortly after that, in the beginning of July, again, our dragon boats will be invading our beautiful park and again, raising a tremendous amount of money for our local hospitals here. And then right after that, our hospice triathlon will be at the waterfront as well to kick off another great event for us. And then, as you stated earlier, leading us to the granddaddy of them all, the Corn Festival.
And if they go to the Town of Tecumseh website, all that information will be there, Gary?
That's correct. It's all there on our website. And stay tuned, obviously Cogeco and certainly other media outlets. We will be, publicizing those great events. And we're telling them, come on down. The park is there for everybody. Enjoy.
Whoops, that's okay.
Enjoy your festivities and as always, Tecumseh, we're great hosts, and our people here are very kind and patient, and certainly welcome all newcomers in our community.
Well, listen, thanks very much for spending some time with us, and you have an amazing summer. It sounds like you're going to be busy.
You too.
Okay, thanks, Gary.